No.
Words!
All right. I know it's kind of a big, long name for a cannon here. So the soldiers would very rarely refer to it by that big, long official title. Instead, they're simply calling this cannon their 6-pounder. Now, I can assure you this cannon does not weigh 6 pounds. So why do you think they're calling it a 6-pounder? Yes, sir. No, not 6 inches. Yes. Exactly. This cannon, the cannon here fires a 6-pound cannonball. It can actually fire that ball up to the distance of about a mile. It's all the way out to the shores of Round Island out there. And at that mile-long distance, I can tell you with certainty, we could probably hit the pinpoint target of Round Island out there. So that being said, well, it's not really all that accurate of a cannon. The accuracy range is actually more towards the half-mile, just out to where that stone break wall is. And in that range, we're able to hit a ship-sized target once out of every 3 shots, if that target isn't moving. So, still not necessarily an all too accurate cannon. But by the 1880s, the time period Connor and I are dressed to represent, it doesn't really need to be all that accurate of a cannon. You see, Fort Mackinac here is the headquarters to a national park. And no one's ever heard of a national park coming under attack. So the soldiers were primarily firing off their artillery pieces for more ceremonial events. They'd fire off a salute shot for events like the raising of the flag in the morning, the lowering of the flag in the evening, 4th of July, the president's birthday, or even for the first boat of tourists to come over after the spring ice melts. Because even during the 1880s, well, firing a cannon is pretty cool. And the soldiers were looking for any excuse they could to fire off their artillery pieces. But I think we have the perfect excuse here today. We're going to fire off this cannon for all of you visiting the fort. How does that sound?
Yeah!
All right. Well, with that being said, we first have to clean our cannon before we're able to fire it. So I'm just going to step around the tail spike here, and I will thumb stall for Connor, who's going to be working up at the barrel end of the cannon. Now, the first tool Connor will be using here today is known as the auger, or the gunner's worm. It's essentially kind of like a corkscrew at the end of the stick. He'll run that down to the base of the cannon to try to scrape out any debris that may have been left there from our previous firings. Now, today we may find some historically inaccurate aluminum foil, but during the 1880s they were actually wrapping their charges in a muslin cloth. However, cloth does have a tendency to keep burning, and so to prevent any sparks or embers from really lingering at the base of the cannon here, well, we switched over to aluminum foil, which just cools down that much quicker. Now, the next tool Connor will be using here today is known as the wet swab. Essentially, it's kind of like a dirty sponge at the end of a stick. He'll run this down the bore of the cannon to further extinguish any sparks or embers in a couple of different ways. One, by introducing water into the bore, but also by creating a vacuum. So you heard that thump when Connor removed the swab. That's the sound of the vacuum breaking. And with that, we can now load in our powder charge. And the charge we're going to be using today is about 4 ounces of black powder. Now, unfortunately, this is a rather diminished charge as compared to the salute shots during the 1880s. During the 1880s, they'd actually use about 10 ounces of black powder, and to fire a cannonball, you need about 20. However, larger charges are also significantly louder, and horses do not typically like loud, sudden noises, so we cannot fire off those larger charges. I know. You may all say, "Aw." Heartbreaking. But I can assure you, 4 ounces is going to be plenty loud enough. To the front.
Why do I not?
Now the next step here will be to prime the cannon. So Connor will take the brass spikes known as the gimlet, and he'll run that in a punch hole in the rear of the cannon there, tearing open a hole in the charge that he's placed there, and that will expose the charge to our ignition device, the friction primer. Now what a friction primer is, it is essentially a brass tube filled with very fine gunpowder. And at the top of this tube, there's a chemical known as fulminated mercury. It's a very friction-sensitive chemical, so when this coal pen at the top is cold, it will cause it to flare up, ignite the very fine gunpowder, sending a jet of flame through the touch hole, and setting off our cannon salute here for you today. Now with that, I am going to warn you at this time, this cannon can be a bit loud. You'll probably want to cover your ears, or get your cameras ready, you know, depending on your priorities.
Oh.
It is.
We appear to be having some technical difficulties getting the friction primer seated. Once during the War of 1812, but it didn't last too long. Nothing serious yet.
How loud is it?
It'll be loud enough. All right. Now with that, there are only 2 commands to fire this cannon here, and they are simply ready, fire! All right. Well, that does conclude our firing demonstration.